Hi guys, we are coming together from my art studio. It's Mrs. Sentner, and we are going to work on our art project today from home. And so our artist, if you, I hope, have already watched the lesson online, the learning portion, so you learned about our artist. Her name is Trupti Karjini. She is from Belgaum, India. And she actually sent me the piece of art that we're doing together and thought it would be great for you guys. So we're going to move on into our lesson, and you just follow step by step with me. If you haven't gotten all of your supplies ready and together, then make sure to hit pause and go ahead and gather your supplies and then come back. So the first thing that we're going to do, this is the lesson that she sent to us, and we are working on that today. So if you would go ahead and get your paper out and some tape. You can either use masking tape or painter's tape works well. Frog tape works well, just not anything like duct tape or scotch tape. They will not work. This is going to be to set up our paper. So you just take a strip of tape and tear it off, and then we're going to start at the top of our page and just have a hard surface. I usually use like folder binders or the back of a legal pad or something that's a firm surface. And we want to tape our paper down, make sure this edge up against here, make sure your hands are clean so that you're not getting any oily surface on your paper. The watercolor will pull away from that, so we don't want to have any oils from our hands or food. And then you're just going to go around and match up your edges here, trying to keep it the same all the way down, and tape down your paper on all four sides. And then at the end, I will show you how to remove the tape so that you don't tear your paper. So we'll get this done real quick. I have to go continuous video. I miss you guys so much. I miss your sweet faces in the art room. And I really hope that you guys will post your art lessons when you're finished so we can cheer each other on online and keep our wonderful art community going. So here we go. All right, so I have all four sides of my paper taped down, and now this is going to be the part where we are going to test our watercolor strip. So I'm going to set my pencil aside for a minute. I keep 2 jars of water. I have a warm one and a cool one, so that as I'm rinsing my brush, if it's a warm color, which is yellow, orange, or red tones, I'll rinse it in the reds jar, the warm jar. And then if I'm using green, blue, or purple, I will rinse it in my cool jar. And that keeps my water, you know, in the classroom, how our water gets muddy. I don't want to have muddy water and have that mess up my art. So I will rinse my brush depending on what color I use. The first thing we want to do is just get a test strip. So make a square around your watercolor that was sent home. If you don't have it, use whatever supplies you have. If all you have is markers and you're going to blend colors with markers, that's fine. We're just going to see what our colors look like here. And we want to rinse between colors so we're not mixing our colors on our paper. So here I'm getting going, add a little bit more water to this. This one is kind of a magenta color. I got too much paint on there. I want to be real careful not to use up my paint too much. Then I'll do my red, just going around and getting the paper wet and bringing in the paint, just so we can see what our colors are. So I'll have a little bit darker on one side and lighter on the other, and that gives me a good visual of what my colors are like. Now I'm going to move into my cool tone. I have a blue and a green. So I want to see what those colors look like. My blue and my green. Again, we want to thank John at Hazel Art Supply, who gave us the paint at a really great price so that we could make all these dot cards for kinder through 2nd grade. He gave us other stuff for 3rd through 5th grade. And then I'm going to do my burnt sienna up here. So this is so that we know what colors we're working with, and now we have that. So the next thing I want to do is take these colors, and I want to, you can put your tape aside, mix some colors together before we get started. So I'm going to take some of my yellow here, get a little bit on my paintbrush, and I like to just push it off my, pick it up with my brush and then push it off on my plate, coming up the edge of my plate. I don't want to use too much of my paint. I just want to get some of it going and then put it on my plate so I have something to mix with over here. I don't want to leave puddles on this. I know a lot of you guys like to have thick paint and a lot of puddles, but with watercolor we really don't need that. So then I'm going to take some of my blue here. So we're going to mix yellow and blue together. We already have a green, but when you mix yellow and blue together, you're going to get a little bit of a different green. So I want to have a mix here of different greens for this piece of art. So that one's going to give me a darker green. And it's okay if you have to walk away and come back to this. That's a great thing about using the plate also, is you can also always pick back up where you left off. Like this is my plate that I use for a lot of my art. And you can see all the different colors, and I'll just keep mixing things in here. It's a fun way to mix your paint. So I've got a darker green going on here. I might need some more later, but at least I'm getting it started. Then I'm gonna mix, that's cool. So then I'm gonna mix my yellow and green that I already have to get a lighter green. So I'm gonna get some green going. And this paint, we want to conserve it as much as we can so we make it through this whole painting without running out of paint. You can use whatever supplies you have at home and do this as well and keep on going if you want to try it a few times, or if somebody gets out and goes and gets some supplies for the house, then maybe they can grab you some watercolor set. Even the Crayola watercolor set and some watercolor paper would be good. Okay, great. So now I have a brighter green, regular green, and a darker green that I'm going to be able to work with later. So these are just colors we want to mix together. And then I want to take this burnt sienna color up here and do that on my plate. You can pause as you go. I'm just going to keep going, unlike in class where I stop at every step. You guys can hit pause and do what I'm doing, but I just don't leave little puddles on here that are going to make my paint get mushy. So I'll rinse that and add yellow. Bring that up here and add this yellow to my burnt sienna. While I'm in the yellow, I think I'm going to go ahead and grab some more because I know I'm going to need some more of that green in a little while when I'm working with darker greens. But we're going to have trees, and we're going to have all kinds of grass and leaves and things, and so we're going to need a lot of paint. If I run out of paint, you guys can always grab some more paint. So, okay. So I'm going to have that ready to go if I need to mix some more. So those are the colors that we definitely needed to mix. And now we're going to move on to the next step. We're going to start with what is called wet on wet painting. We don't want to go dry on here. We're going to do a background first. So I think I would like to have my sample of what Trupti sent to me, if I can get it onto my iPad. Un momento, por favor. Let me see if I can get that picture on my iPad, and then I can have it here to look at while we are doing our art. There we go, right there. So we can have that as our inspiration. I don't know if you can see it, but this little picture right here is what she sent me. So we're gonna do wet on wet, which means we need to get this paper wet. If you don't have a bigger brush, you want to use a bigger brush and clean water that doesn't have any paint in it. Like I have an extra jar of just clean water right here that I'm going to use. And I'm going to use this thicker brush. But if you don't have that, you could fold a paper towel and wet it, and just very gently come down the paper with it this way and this way, just to get your paper wet, but don't scrub. You don't want to mess up the paper surface. I'm not sure if like a little sponge might work. Just make sure it's clean. That one has a lot of paint on it from the classroom, but I'm gonna take my paint and my paintbrush and water, and I'm gonna come and I'm gonna just apply water in all directions. This is why we want to have the tape down. The tape will help to keep our paper secure. And it won't get all bunched up when we're painting. So we want to have a nice wet surface on our paper, but not too much scrubbing that's going to make our paper surface get messed up. So once you're done with that, you just set your big brush or whatever you used aside and your water aside. And we are going to hurry and move into our first step here, which is going to be painting our clouds. You are going to need to have a paper towel handy. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to just start dropping in my blue paint and making my cloud section up here. You can add in water here to dilute this a little bit, and then come around here and get your sky colored in. I'm not going to do continuous strokes. I'm going to drop it in at different layers and different levels so that I have some clouds begin to appear. Can you see that in here that she's got white? I'm going to keep going quickly. I want to move fast so that my paper stays wet. If I want to add some more water and smooth some of it out, I can. And I'm leaving some white areas here where I'm going to end up plugging in some of the magenta color. So now I've got my clouds in. I can even take a paper towel and use the rough ends on this side, just kind of bunch them up if I want to come in here and add in some texturing to my clouds. You can come in like this with it, just to kind of make them look like different colors and darker in some spots and lighter in some spots, and then set my paper towel aside again. That one's a little bright right there. Then I'm going to get my brush rinsed in my warm water and take some of this magenta and just drop it in here. Can you see very lightly there's some light pinky shades inside of here? So I'm going to take this magenta and mix it into my clouds. That's too much, so I'm going to add water and move it around. I don't want to have rough, hard edges, so I actually may end up having to use my paper towel again on the edges. Just get it real thin, and on the edges of that, I don't want them to be sharp edges when they dry, so kind of make them a little cloud poofy. Have fluffy clouds. Okay, so then next I need to tilt this up a little bit. I can't see it very well when it's flat down. Okay, so I have some pink in my clouds here. If I want to do a little bit more, just some light watery pink, I can add some more of that in here like this. Just add more water to your watercolor. It gives it a whole different tint and shade look. Okay. Okay, so then the next thing we want to do is get our bottom of our paper covered in a light yellow, like we did the clouds at the top. So I'm just going to start bringing in this light yellow ground effect. And I might add in some burnt sienna at the same time here. And add a lot of water and get it moved around. You want to keep adding water to keep your paper wet. I'm leaving this area kind of open. I might add a little bit more water up to the clouds, but I don't want the clouds to bleed into my ground where I'm going to end up putting trees. So just move back and forth. Take some of that yellow and burnt sienna that I made earlier mix some of that in to get my ground to look different colors. And we're just getting a base layer. This is called our first wash. Mixing in these colors here. Just to get kind of a ground effect. My paper's getting dry down here, so I want to keep it wet. So my colors don't end up making a hard line. Everything will blend together and be a nice soft line. Blending together smoothly. So we've got our background going in now. If you need to hit pause to catch up with me, that's fine. If you need to back up, I don't know if you know about that in YouTube, you can just double tap on the left and it'll back up 10 seconds, something like that, but it's easier than trying to move that little bar across. Okay, so as my clouds are beginning to dry, that looks really cool. Then I can add in some more base colors down here. Take some of this lighter green that I made before, and I'm going to drop that in these sections where I have little grass patches, which will be fun later when we get to painting the grass leaves that are sticking up. I don't want to mix that too much and have it turn brown. I'm just dropping it in. But it'll be fun to be able to have grass poking up out of all these little green sections. And we'll learn about perspective. I know I've taught you guys about that before, but the things that are closer to us will be, the things that are up closer will be larger, and then as in the middle it gets a little smaller, and further away the grass gets really tiny. So that's what we will do with ours. So I'll just lay down this light green here. I'm going to let this top part dry some so that we can move into that next. That's the trick, is how do we keep our paint going when it's still wet and then start working on it again when it's dry so it doesn't all blend together. So that's a good base layer. And while that is starting to dry, if you need to hit pause, always hit pause. I need to keep going just for the sake of this video not being super, super long. I'm going to start with, this is still a little bit wet here. So I'm going to take my hair dryer that I have just to give it a little quick. Just needed that part kind of dry, but this I'm just gonna let keep drying. We'll see how it does in a minute. And I'm going to start working on some of these trees up here. So I have we always want to work in watercolor from lightest to darkest, so you can see back here behind some of these trees they're much lighter. So I'm going to make me some more of the light green, where I mixed yellow and green together. So I'm going to take that yellow and then get some more of my green and mix that in. I don't really want it to sit on my paint, but I'm going to mix that this way, try to keep it away from this blue. And work, and I can add a little more water just to make it lighter. Then I'm going to come in here and I'm going to start making my trees. So I'm going to just move my brush and dab it around back and forth to start making my trees. I'm going to come down into this grassy area. So imagine where your horizon line will be. I didn't want to paint it in or draw it in because I don't like having the pencil in our art, but wherever you start with your base of your first tree, then you'll want to keep coming across like that. So I'm going to add in some more of this light tree here. Then I'll come here next and add in some more. We're not making them perfect little trees. These will be the backgrounds of our trees. So just move at different heights and come across your paper, making all the trees. Then my one bigger tree is going to be a little off center. I want it to be a little taller than the rest of them. When this dries, it'll be quite a bit lighter than it is when it's wet. Then this next to it, it looks like kind of a tiny little tree and some bushes, and so we'll just come straight across and keep them going. There'll be a kind of a brown tree right there and a bigger tree right here. So I think I've got, whoopsies, I don't want to do that. I got that in there. If you do that and your colors start to mix together like I just did, you can just plop down your paper towel and soak that up and it'll stop. Okay, so I've got those trees going, and then I'm going to end up with my medium green, which is going to be right here. And I'll start back on this edge while these are still a little bit wet. And I'm going to start dropping some of this medium green, and I'm not going to do it in every part of it. I'm just going to drop some of this medium green into my already existing trees that I started. And I'll come here to this next one and just swipe some into it. If I need to come outside of it, I can. Come to the next tree. And drop some green in. Come here, give it a little few drops of green. This is wet and wet, and so as I put them in mixed together, they will kind of spread and blend, and that's the fun part of watercolor, is it kind of has a mind of its own and it creates some really beautiful pieces of art. So just drop in some of this medium green. I'm not going to do a lot over here until we get to this one. Okay, and then for my last, I'm going to give those trees a break for a second, and I'm going to start going across with this line. So in order to make a darker brown, I'm going to use this lighter color first just to get some ground going, but we'll end up mixing our own darker brown. So when I mixed together this burnt sienna with this yellow, I got this kind of orangey color going on up here, and I'm going to have some of that be my base layer here that's coming through. And when we need to get a darker kind of black color in a little while, we will be able to do that by mixing together complementary colors. That means they're across the color spectrum, and we will mix them together so that they turn brown. So that will be yellow and purple will be kind of our family, or orange and blue will give us, since this looks kind of more orangey, I can add more blue. But I'm going to just get this going as my base shadow so I can put some darker on top of it. So y'all just follow along with me, and you can add in so now if I take some of my, I'm going to rinse that off. If I take some of my blue, let's see how this does. and I add it to this orangey color that I made. See how it turns brown? And I'd still like it to be a little darker. So I'm going to take some more of that blue and add it to this, and see how dark it gets? Because complementary colors, when they are across from each other on the color wheel, they turn browns and blacks when you mix them together. That's why when you guys are in class and you're mixing all your colors in the water, we keep coming around to rinse it because the water gets so dark. So now I want to drop some of this dark color into my orange colored ground and let it just kind of spread up into the trees and down the middle of this. I'm not going to come down here. I'm going to let it stay. Kind of get that in there. Add some more watercolor. A little bit goes a long way, so you really do not have to paint really thick. That's why we didn't have to give you an awful lot of paint. My tree trunk I'm going to need, so I'm going to go ahead and start to add that in here. Just kind of dabbing it in. Not really sure if that's like a fence or a piece of a barn or something, but I'll get my brush to be kind of flat, and then come here and just paint a little line across like it has in there. We can always add some more to it a little bit later. And then I've got this little guy right here that's also a tree that I can get started. And then add some more shading around here at the bottom. If you are feeling like you're getting behind, always hit pause. You can back up as you understand. I just need to keep going so we don't have a very, very super long video. We don't want to have this be too long, so I'm trying to keep going. And then there's this kind of brown tree in here that we want to start to add in. If the paintbrush we sent home from our stash of paintbrushes is not awesome, you can always make your get your own paintbrush if you have one. I'm gonna put a little bit of some tree behind here, a little bit. You can kind of see some of that in this picture too. Maybe it's the shade or the shadows on the trees. And we've got that one in the front. So I'm going to give that a break for a little bit now and let that kind of have a first layer of drying. We're not going to touch the clouds anymore at all. And now I'm going to move down here. My paper has dried a whole lot more, enough that I can work with it. So now I want to go to this medium green color, not one of the ones we mixed. And I'm going to start to fill in these grassy sections that have some green in them. So I'm going to put a little bit of the paint, and then I'll add some water to move it around and get my grass sections laid out. I want it to have more of a smooth edge, so I'll try to make it smoother this way. And then I'll do the next one. Too much water. Just want to have a good light wash of what we can add to our grass. So here we go with this one, just to get a little bit of a base layer of a color down. Where we've got some extra greens. You can always work to touch this up. You can go back and look at the video of Troop D's original if you want to have that one up on your screen while you're painting. That's fine. Troop D has a lot of really great classes on Skillshare, and if you contact her on Instagram, she will send you, I don't know if it's a month or 2 months right now, what she has available, but she will send you free Skillshare login to her page. So it does allow you to have access to a lot of other artists, but she's really sweet to share that. So I think that's kind of all the base green, maybe a tiny, really watered down bit in here. let that dry. And I can move back up to this area again. So we just work back and forth, let something dry a little bit. So I'd really like to have a dark green now. I'm not really liking this darker green. Let me add a little bit more of this green to it and see what I end up with. Okay, that's better. So just mix blue and green so you get a darker green until you really like the shade. And then I'm going to come in here and just add some more in some different spots, not the whole tree, just to get me some different texture going on. And some darker. So all these different colors have given us different layers and different visibility for our trees. So it looks like they're stacked in levels, like a forest or a countryside. We're doing them really loose, not super detailed. Kind of running out of my dark green pretty quick. So fill in all your little trees wherever you want to. So Trupti was super excited that we were doing this with you kids, and she said to tell all of you hello from India. They are also in their houses just like we are, staying healthy and staying home just like we are here in America, which is pretty exciting to know that around the whole world we're all doing the same thing. Okay, so I like that there's a little bit of yellow here, so I'm going to bring some yellow into my work, some brighter yellow down here. I'm going to add that in and add some water to kind of help spread it out and keep it from having too straight of lines. Get a little bit more. This is a little bit darker in this area with yellow, so I'm going to have this part be much darker right here and then smooth it out to this direction. You guys just take your time. And I always want to remind you that no matter what your art looks like, it's your personality coming out of you. None of ours should ever look the same, ever. We should all have very original ways that we do our brush strokes and the amount of paint that we add. Everything that we do is our own individual, unique artist style, and we just want to see yours come out. So I think we've got a good little path of yellows going on there. Now I really need a dark brown. So I'm going to try to add some more blue here. I wonder if I add in this magenta color, if it will give me a darker looking blackish brown color. Nope, that went purple. We don't need purple, but I can still fix that. Add some of this to it and see what we come up with. So that's the fun part. We can, yep, there we go. Okay, so I did purple or blue and magenta and got a purple, and then I started adding in that burnt sienna to darken it up some. So I like that a lot better. So now I'm going to come across here on my ground again. This is kind of like the trees have a little bit of shading, that's kind of shadows that have hit onto the ground. Get some more into my tree trunk. take some of this in between this little fence post area. My other little tree trunk. And this tree. What do you think? Drop some more darker into it, so hopefully it'll dry a little bit darker. You guys are awesome artists. I cannot wait to see your work posted online. I'm just going to give a shot here and see if I can get this any darker. Adding a little bit more blue. I sure did. So I added a little bit more blue. This is why I like working on a really, really white plate so I can see. I'm going to add some of this darker up here at the top. Oh, I really like what that's doing right there. Okay, guys. So I'm going to give this section a break. We never want to overwork watercolor. You just want to let it kind of do its own thing. Put in a little bit of shading around here. I love what that's doing because it looks like the trees are casting a shadow onto the ground. Oh my gosh, that's neat. So that's what's fun about watercolor. It just does its own thing. So now I want to get back to grass. So I'm going to need different shades of green for my grass. So I need to make me a darker green again. I keep running out, but you don't ever want to use up all your paint too early on the front end. So I'll put some blue here. And then pick up some yellow again. See how far I can make this yellow last when I'm running out. I might add some more yellow in right here real quick for these bright flowers before I use it up for green. Okay, so now I can not worry about it. If I need more paint, I'll have enough to get this into a darker green. Every time I want to rinse my brush again, if I need to pick up more yellow, I do not want to run my brush in here with blue on it. I don't want them to touch and then drag a bunch of blue into my yellow. Okay, so here's kind of a darker green for me. And I'd like to have a lighter green. So I'll take some more yellow. Remember where we had our lighter green over here. So yellow and green are going to make a lighter green. So this is going to be 3 different colors of green for grasses now. So with perspective, we want to make sure that we have grass back here on our art that's smaller. And then here it's a little bit bigger, and then up here it's much larger. So I'm going to go ahead and begin with, and we always work from light to dark. So I'm going to work with my lightest color of green here, and further away, just do some real tiny little sprigs of grass out here that are small. You can just have your brush nice and flat, not too much paint on it. You can always add more. And then just hold your paintbrush up and down and do some little sprigs of grass like this. All along the way, just little bitty patches of grass. So it looks real small off in the distance. So then when you do some in this middle section, you'll have them get a little bit larger. And I'll do some more bigger ones, some more that are bigger in this area. And then when we get to the bottom, we'll really do them nice and big. Get a little middle one she has here in this patch and right here. And then as we get closer to the front, we want these to be much more detailed, a whole lot more grass. Just flick your brush up. Oops, I need some right here. Dunk, dunk, dunk. So we just want to have our little mounds of grass start to show up. If your paint on your plate dries, you can re-wet it a little bit. Just add some more paint to your brush and water to your brush and stick it back in there and it'll loosen up again. That's what I love about using the plate. Then I don't waste a bunch of paint. And that really doesn't look like it would be enough to use, but it totally is. So here we go. Just painting all these little patches of grass. So this one I'm going to want to have much bigger because it's closest to us. Okay, so then I'm going to move to my medium green. Pick up the medium green. I'll use this drier part of the paper to get some of the water off of that. Then I'm going to start back up here with my little tiny pieces of grass. I'm not going to do them very big. I think that has way, you need to get some of that off of there. It's way, way, way too wet. So we just want to have little bitty sprigs of grass. And you just take your time. I might even add in a little bit more, some ground cover in here just to get that. But just use your green to make your sprigs of grass. We can keep on working with sprigs of grass for quite a while. Now I'm supposed to be using this green. Silly. Okay, so I'm going to add some of this medium green in with my light green. I'm just leaving where the light green is showing. And just making, I hold my brushes up and down and just make some little flick marks with my just keep picking up a little bit more paint and go to each little area of grass and add a little bit more. And of course, as you get to the front, which is closest to you in your perspective, you certainly can have your grass get a whole lot bigger. Okay, so now I'm going to want to move into my darker green. And one of the things I notice already is that this part of the ground is getting darker now. So I think I'm going to go ahead and add some of this green in under the grass here. And under this one, we'll build up on that. Probably add a little bit of something else a little bit later. Just pause the video as you go. Remember, I have to keep going so this video isn't too long. But you guys can work at your own pace and stop it and start it over and over until you're ready. But just dab your paintbrush around and add your darker green. And then I'll come in and make some more sprigs of grass with my darker green. And I'm okay even if that runs together right there where it's still wet. If yours is still wet and it runs together a little bit, that's totally fine. It's just a great look of watercolor for water and the color to mix together and do its own thing. Sometimes it's fun to watch what it does. I know you guys are going to have a beautiful masterpiece. Okay, so now I think I'm finished. I'm gonna take a look at everything and make sure that I like it, if there's anything I want to touch up. So I see I might like to have some of this darker brown maybe coming into my grass area here where the shadows are. So I'll just add some water to the part that dried on my plate. And just drop that in. Just to give it some variation of darkness for the shadows and the shading. Maybe some down here. Just barely drop it in, little dots. And let it drop in there. And I think I'm done. I don't really know that I want to add any more, but you can continue to work on yours until you feel like you just love it. Make sure to rinse your paintbrush and dry it so that you don't have a bunch of paint stuck in it. And now we'll move on to how to remove your tape. So I'm going to get this out of the way so I don't run my sleeves through it, because I do that a lot. So when you're finished and your art has dried, don't do this yet until your art is dry. I'm just gonna try to pick some of mine up. You do not have to do this. Just wait till yours is dry. I'm gonna try to help it a little bit. When your art is completely dry, like you can't see any ripples in your paper anymore, then it's going to be time to remove your tape and sign your art. Those are the two things that are super important for you after you've done such a beautiful job. So I think I did this bottom one. So I'm going to peel up my tape and get it started. So I want you to see, I'm going to close this so it's not in my way. So I'm going to take my tape and I'm going to angle it like this and just gently pull my tape this way, and it's going to give us a beautiful crisp watercolor edge. We don't want to pull it too quickly. You want to make sure yours is completely dry. I'm just not waiting for mine to be completely dry since we need to have this all in one video. And then I'm going to peel up this next section and turn my paper, and I'm going to hold this in while I just very gently pull my tape away. I don't want to see any white paper show up on this. Good job. And I'll turn it this way to get this side and just gently peel back. I don't rip it up like this because that has a bigger chance of tearing the paper. And then for our last side, I'm going to peel away the tape here at my sky. Isn't that beautiful? How it has such a beautiful, it's okay that it tears this cardboard. I'm not worried about that. I just am making sure the art doesn't tear. So once I'm all set and finished, get rid of my tape and then put my cardboard aside, and I have my piece of art. So the very last thing you want to do is get your pencil and pen, whatever you want to, and you want to sign your name with lots of beautiful flourish. You have worked very hard. So I'm going to do 3, 20, 20. So do your name. You can even come all the way out if you want to. Just show it up for your art. You worked really hard on it. So you guys have done a great job. Once you have finished your art piece, I want you to have your mom or dad take a picture of it and go post it on our Instagram and Facebook page. It is Oak Meadow Elementary. Everything, all the comments have all the links and everything in the notes underneath this video. So like the video and then click the links to go to Facebook or Instagram or both and post your picture. And you want to do hashtag Saddle Up Mavs and hashtag Rooted Oak Meadow, and we will be excited to cheer each other on and continue to be friends in our community and share our work with each other and just get excited about our art together and encourage our friends. So encourage yourself, encourage your friends, and keep on making art. I love you guys and I miss you and I can't wait to see you again. Bye.